Hello people! Welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew here on Sunday Sharpenings, and today we have the Venev Industrial Diamonds. This is their finishing stone. It is a 5 to 7 or 6. Let's see if we can. It is a 5 to 7 or 6 micron and a 2 to 3 or 2.5 micron. Approximately something around the 4 and 6,000, unless you're nano, and then that is a 3 and 5,000. And we're going to continue the S35VN into a finish state right here. We're going to go into all the way up. Get that focus there. There we go. Sorry here. Trying this autofocus here just a little bit. See if we can't get something. Anyway, 15 degrees per side, 1 degree on the primary bevel, so we're going to go 14 on the secondary here. Give us that one and work at the 4,000 or 5 to 7 micron. This is the FEPA, or what Russia basically uses, where they grade it by the highest, the 7 micron, but there's a spread of in the 5 to 7 range. So they call it a 5 to 7 micron, and then they'll average it and say it's 6, but the bulk of them are going to be in that higher range. That's the way their grid system works. So even though they want to average it, that's not how their grid system works. So there's first lie. I already don't like Venev for this. Here's the second one. Their material that comes with it says it is a 100% diamond concentration. Now, I don't know how dumb they think you are, but I know I am not so stupid as to believe that, quite honestly, this is not 100% diamonds. So it is not a 100% diamond concentration. My guess is, just to be generous, is that it was a typo and it's really a 10% diamond concentration. My guess is it's Russian and they just didn't want to say it's only 10%. So like 100% concentration would mean there's no resin that this is in. That's just not true. More than likely it's 10%. Second lie. They're already on there. Other one is, these things are really hard to get nowadays, partly because there's a long shipping time and partly because Russia's in a war with Ukraine right now. They're one of the most sanctioned countries in the world. The only place that they can get industrial diamonds is China, and a lot of the supply lines throughout the country have been destroyed or have been sabotaged in multiple ways. So it's going to be hard for them to get it. The likelihood that they're still making 10% or even honest in their construction, we'll see. There's still probably diamonds in there. Luckily, if they were really smart, they would just, instead of diamonds, would say CBN, because Russia actually has a lot of capacity to make CBN. But they don't. They have a marketing, they have a perception problem, and that goes from their leader on down to the people that still stay there. All right, so now I'm at the 14. Very smooth. By the way, I prepped these with rust erasers. So I prepped these with the rust erasers. The medium one, I have the rough, medium, and fine. So the rough is usually for different ones. The medium one to start, and then the fine one to really get through. So, and they go sideways as well as lengthwise. So I got myself a little bit here. I don't need to, even though I did set it, I'm going to keep going with the Wijek angle finder. Not a lot of talk except for about the Venevs. A lot of ASMR on this one. Very smooth. In fact, almost too smooth. Very glassy. It's definitely cutting. It's not the fastest cutter I've ever had. The Nano 3000 does a faster job, but these are diamonds. How does he know? Quick visual. smoothness is related to the hardness of the resin, which means these are going to be pretty slow wearing, I would think. Is that 20? It's about 20. So slight burr, not even, not an even burr, but there is a slight burr. Do just a couple more here. Make sure I got my angle right. Just a few more there. Once my fingers start to get a little bit wet, they do not always feel the burr properly. And again, this is going to be really fine. This is a 5 to 7 micron, with the bulk of them being in that 7 micron range. 3 to 4,000 grit in the general, like JIS or normal, what most people are used to. Okay, not 100% there. We'll do 5 more strokes just to get 40 all together in a nice even burr. I'll say one thing, I'm impressed by the heat treat on this S35VN of the Joy of Cooking. It just routinely takes a significant amount of, it's probably at about 61, and just routinely takes a significant amount of abrasion to bring it to a burr and an edge. Quick and do just one last final evening stroke. A little bit there on the last. Get a nice burr. Grind that burr off. There's, ooh, ooh. Little twack of the finger there. I don't think we're going to bleed all over the place, so everyone who doesn't like blood, give me a moment. Do not think we're going to bleed all over the place. It barely hit. So, knowing my luck, the water's going to make it. So, anyway, here we go. 14 degrees. We've got to start on the other side here. What am I doing? I am doing the... I'm going to do a quick, like, shaving bit. If you cut yourself shaving. Alright, so got the angle. Check. Slightly less of an angle. Interesting. So while smooth, they're a little sticky. Just to put my 2 cents on there. While smooth, it's a little sticky, and that's an interesting combo. A little bit. Just a wee little bit. I'll see how much of this. I seem to be doing okay on that, so. What about the angle? Those of you who are used to ASMR on this stuff, this is actually a very, very quiet stone, which is both good and bad. The feedback is almost non-existent. Like you can feel it gliding, and that's about it, and that's both good and bad. Anything that comes up is all of a sudden. But you don't know that until you actually have something happen. So it feels really, really, really like there's not a lot of feedback. Not a lot at the tip. Okay, and get a couple of evening strokes. All right, so let me see here. Dry hand. Definitely a burr. A little bit light on the heel, just a tiny bit. See if I can get a burr on the heel and a nice even grind all the way. Just to even her up a bit. And there we go. Burr on the heel. Relatively even all the way across. A little bit on that tip still. Won't take much. The diamonds do cut. Isn't the fastest cutting diamond stone. It still belongs, quite honestly, to the atomas. As far as just a group, individual stones may differ, but in my experience, the atomas are probably the faster cuttings. They're fairly rough for the diamond grading, and those domed dots actually do quite a bit to help with the cutting. All right, there's a burr all the way across. Now, people talk about just knocking down a burr. You're grinding it off. Unless you're using plain leather, you're grinding it off. It's just what you want is a grit that is significantly smaller than whatever you just last did, so that what's grinding off is just a tiniest little sheen off the steel, and that'll pull the burr. But we're going to reduce it here with 1, 2, 3. Just enough to grind some off. 1, 2, 3. Especially with something as fine as around a 7 micron. I'm just going to count down from 3. I'm just going to go from 3, 2, 1, then a couple of 1s. It'll be 8 total strokes here. And I'm using the Widget because it's just nice. I reprofiled this, so I want to make sure that I maintain that profile. From here on out, I can pretty much, unless I ever need to reprofile it, I can pretty much visually and tactily find that angle again. 2. And I just go 1. Dun, 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 and 1. 1. 7 per side, and this will be 8 on the 7 micron stone. Getting a nice, now it's not going to look even. If you're trying to look for height on this one, it's not going to look, but that height is dependent, quite honestly, on the thickness of the blade being even all over. So if I'm doing a nice even grind this way, and I'm keeping it so that it does it, and it varies in its height, that means it's a varying in the thickness of the blade that way, right? There might be some of it too, especially when you're doing it by hand where it's not, but if it's a significant amount, it's not due to you being, and you know from other knives and other stuff that your skill is good enough that it doesn't vary that much. It is very much the thickness of the blade. I have fallen prey to that myself. All right, let's get a little bit of a load up off this thing. The stone does load. That's the other thing. This resin loads up. I'm not particularly impressed with that. The resin loads up quite a bit and it doesn't come off easy. Gotta basically does come off for a fair amount, so you basically gotta flatten it with some silicon carbide in order to get that. All right, down to the 2 to 3 micron. Bulk of this is going to be in the 3 micron side, but it is also going to have some bits that go out. And you're like, what about what you just did? Show us, show us, show us. Look, man, it cut my finger. Just twacking it. It's pretty well healed. It was very, very minor, but it definitely cut the finger. I suppose we should do something. It's dry enough right now. Here's something. See if I can do this. It's wet at the bottom, so before it capillary stuff up here. So, cuts paper towel right now while it's hanging. Not a bad. The smoothness makes me think I can get a crisp edge. I don't know if it's going to be quite as good as like vitrified alumina, but which is, for those who don't know, that's like Spyderco's Ultrafine. But all right, let's do the 2 to 3 micron here. So that was 2 sets of 15. What do we got right now for a burr? Hopefully. It's a little bit, just a mic. Let me get back to my dryer hand here. Micro, a little bit off the tip still, and a tiny bit on the heel. So I got 10, effectively 10 strokes here. Do a little bit of grinding just to make sure. There's my 10. Just feel it. If you're wondering why I put the widget there, it was just to make sure that I'm feeling it still. As long as I have it here, I'll often do that. And it's just to make sure that when I go and set it on there, that the feeling I have in my wrist, that locking, that I'm using my arm and this doesn't move, it twists with from my shoulder. This becomes kind of a solid piece. That what I feel, that lock, that sort of isometric lock, is the proper angle. It is actually that simple. I just want to make sure that the feeling I have hasn't lost its attachment to the angle that it's supposed to be. Alright, so now we go to here. So at the base, it's good. At the tip, that's perpendicular. Flat, that's good. I want to talk to you about that little noise you heard, the scrape. That was me going off angle. I'm going back on. That was me dropping the angle and scraping it. So there is some nice audible feedback if you get off. It is an interesting thing. There's basically nothing unless something happens. The smoother you are on this one, the more it rewards you with being quiet. How Russian. There's 15. Should be about 30 plus a little bit of grinding, give or take a couple of strokes. Why do I not care? Because I want to establish that micro burr. I've only got it in a couple of places, so the grind goes on. Let me get a little bit of... This red side seems to be extraordinarily thirsty. This 2 to 3 micron one. Hear that? Come back here, Widget. this one now. It comes to all this. Tiny micro burr. Ooh, that's about right. We're gonna do 5 more strokes just to even it up a little bit. As I hit that, it rolled and I missed my angle. Not bad. Little bit. All right. 20 something minutes. This is actually, for me, enough of a burr that I believe it's hard for me to always feel the micro burrs on a 2 to 3 micron exact. And it kind of feels like there's one. It might not be even, but if there's a burr all over, if there's one that I can feel easy and one I'm not sure, there's probably one there. It's just small. So 3. Back to this side. Pull the burr. Ooh, what was that? Is this thing cut in? Am I cutting into the stone, the resin? No. A little extra one just to make sure. I felt like I was off on one of those. All right. Tap. So make these single strokes on point and really hit the apex nice. Feel like, what do you do after this? Just drop it. We're gonna go single strap on this one since we went all the way to a 2 micron. I'm going to do just a couple of long strokes here. Wow, what was this right here? There's a little roughness there. We're going to do one more long stroke on this side and hit that part real good. No roughness on this side, okay. All right, so there we go. To a 2 micron, 2 to 3 micron, 3 micron really. 3 micron stone on the Venev. Some might say, hey, go to 1. No. We're going all the way down. Like I said, that's one of the things to do here. This is, however, a kitchen knife, so I don't do the J-strap right off. Whew. This is 1/4 micron diamond. Tech Diamond Tools, 1/4 micron and below is what the grade says. Silly thing gets right about where my glasses don't hit. So visually, I can't always always do this very well and stay on camera and actually hit the edge and the apex with the strop. But the idea being that I do J-strop, so let's see if I can get this on. That feels right. I do J-strop just a little bit. So, a few strops at the 1/4 micron, literally 2 backwards, 2 forwards in the J-strop style. See, what do we have here? Let's see what I can do with y'all. Put the rack back up. Wipe her down. Give me something to place stuff on that's not going to get it soaked. Seen this a few times. All right, let's see if I can. We'll try something like this, where someone grabs this and says, hey, look, if I pull this tight, I can maybe get it on camera. I pull this tight, I can. And not get it on camera, my goodness. We'll have to come around here. As soon as it gets loose, of course. But it's also soaking the bottom of my paper towel. So that's not always the best one. Anyway, it cuts paper towels. It shaves arms with just a glide. Not bad. Am I super impressed by the Venev? It's all right. I was expecting more. I was definitely expecting more. The feedback, the lack of feedback for anything but a mistake, I can get used to it. I can see how that would be cool because it is just essentially very smooth in its feedback. I can see how that would get something you can get very used to. See how this unloads. Not too bad. That does a pretty good job, actually. Everything else falling. Go to the fine rust eraser. Yep, the fine does a pretty good job of deloading the resin and stuff there, getting a nice new surface. Not too bad. Am I super impressed? Again, no. It's a couple $100 for a 2-sided stone. For a finishing stone. As a finishing stone, there's not a lot of diamond options out there. There's a 3000 and a 6000 nanowa that has a similar type of 1mm resin. One of them at general retail is going to cost you as much as one of these that's double-sided. You can also get a couple of DMTs. The 6 micron and 3 micron, they call it a 4000 and an 8000. What is otherwise the same 6 and 3 micron when it comes to your Trizact stuff is a 3 and 5000 grit, so just take it for what it is. But the 3 and 6 micron in the DMTs gets you very, very, very similar results to the Venev. It's very similar in there. You can get singles. Sharpening Supplies has an exclusive double-sided one. You run the risk of grit contamination, but you can get the extra medium, extra fine, and the extra fine, or however many extras they throw in there. Basically, there's a 6 and 3 micron. Compared to this, it's about half the price to get the double-sided one from Sharpening Supplies. I wouldn't say that this is twice as good or that it's going to last that much longer. It loads up a little bit. You have to grind it down. There's only a millimeter. Maybe it is going to grind down. And then there's this whole thing where they talk about it, where they average the grits instead of actually using it's an F800 and the F1200 and the FEPA scale, where it is primarily the larger number. It's not a spread in the middle like a normal distribution. It's geared towards the higher number and then it drops down. That's how the FEPA scale works. The other ones tend to be more in the middle. But this one is a little bit different. So I find it to be a little disingenuous. It's okay, I understand the marketing, but the 100% concentration they marketed at, I just have no forgiveness for that. That's not a typo. That's improper marketing. That's lies in your marketing. That's saying it's 100% diamonds. And then going, well, if you're too stupid to know the difference, look, if you're too stupid to get it right, quit selling these things at 100%. You're lying. It's not anything else. Venev is lying, directly lying about what the grit concentration is in their promotional materials. And given their supply chain woes in their country right now, I'm be surprised if it's actually 10%. It cut okay, but not real great. And it was smooth. It made a good edge. It just didn't cut very fast, which tells me that there's a low diamond concentration in there, which 10% sounds about right. Given the results I've had with 10% diamond concentration in strops, this is about a 10% diamond concentration in the matrix of this resin. Is it okay? Yeah. Would I buy it again? No. There's not a lot of reason to. You can get a Spyderco Ultra Fine or a Spyderco Fine vitrified alumina, and it'll do a lot of the same stuff for a lot of the same things. The 2 micron maybe not, but you can definitely get towards the 6 micron or the 7 micron or 5 micron range. That'll get you there, and then you can strop it, and you'll still have ridiculously sharp edges. So am I impressed? Not a lot. Does it work? Absolutely. Will you be disappointed? No. If this is going to be your finished stone, and you're like, I spent $200 on it, it will work. It will work as good as any other ones. It's just a matter of, is it your best money? I don't know about that, quite honestly. A 6 micron diamond stone from DMT will get you a lot of the same stuff, and then you're talking about strops from there. You have a 1 micron strop after that 6, you're going to be doing just fine. You have a 3 micron, 1 micron. It's unnecessary, and it's just not that much better than anything else that's out there. If it was a 25%, maybe. If it was double the concentration, this would probably be one of the best stones out there. It would be extremely fast cutting. It would be very fast cutting. Wouldn't load up as much, or if it did, it would be just as easy to get through. And because it loads up, because it's kind of a thirsty stone and the top layer soaks in some of that water and just kind of channels it out through capillary action, whatever, it's just not that great. It is smooth. It does feel like a very hard stone, and it has a very glassy feeling to it, and doesn't really give you any feedback until something goes wrong. You lay off or anything like that. As long as you're still on your bevel, it's just going to be smooth and glassy. So if you like that kind of feedback where there isn't any, unless something starts going wonky, this is actually pretty good. It's not my favorite. I kind of like the constant and consistent feedback of some other stones. Alumina stones tend to have that same kind of thing. This is a little smoother than most that I've tried, though it's not that far off of something like the King 6000 or a Shapton 8000. It is still pretty close. It has a lot of the same smoothness to it. But the feedback isn't too bad. It's just not my favorite. That glassy smoothness until something goes wrong is hard to get used to. Once you do, it's hard to get used to anything else. It's just not my favorite. I do prefer the Atoma. I wish Atoma had a 6 micron stone, just a next up from the 1200 to get it just that little bit more, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so the Venev, not too bad, recommendable, but at $200 for a double-sided stone, you can save yourself some money and get a single DMT and some strops, but it's not bad. If this is what you want to get to, it actually does a fantastic job of that, and it will continue to work well for you for a long time. That 1 millimeter will have a good life. Even at 10%, it's still going to cut the hardest steels. If you're not cutting things like hard S35VN or some of the more carbide rich steels, it's just going to stay flat. is going to stay flat for a long time. It's super easy to flatten on a high grit. The resin tends to take a little bit until it flattens back down. Once you flatten it, you almost need to flatten it with a high grit. And then the resin will kind of flatten back down with the sharpening, but it'll stay a little rough if you do. In the meantime, using these tends to keep it sort of flat. Even if it's not 100% flat, it'll be a little bit smooth. And once again, extraordinarily impressed with the heat treat on this Joy of Cooking. Just extraordinarily impressed with it. Takes a while to grind down an edge, even on diamonds. Has so far, I haven't had to strop or anything. It has maintained this edge. I've been using it to really get it in there as my daily knife for multiple different cooking tasks, just to see how it does on all of them. And I'm continually impressed with the steel. There are a few other things, like it's not, like you can see on that secondary bevel, it's not even all the way, which means there's a thickness discrepancy. But it gets really thin up near the tip, gets a little bit thicker right here where it's kind of an area of percussion, that gets thin again by the heel. Does the same thing on this side, which means it's thicker right here and thinner here. That's not bad. This is where it's going to be taking the bulk of the impacts, and this is where you need it to slide and really just kind of push through. So even though it's not even, it's consistently uneven, and it's thicker where it needs to be. That's an interest. I'm not sure if that's a design intention. If it is, that's brilliant. If it's not, I just lucked out. So, great Joy of Cooking S35 yen. The Venev is okay. Don't bust yourself up waiting for one. It's not that great, quite honestly. It just isn't that fantastic of a... Get this back in here. Just isn't that fantastic of a stone. Okay? It really isn't. All right. Just isn't that great. It's good. It's not worth beating yourself up over and waiting for. 10% concentration, decent enough. It'll last a long time. It's okay on the price, but like I said, you can get yourself a DMT and have it come around. So, there we go. This has been Sunday Sharpenings with the Venev double-sided. This is the F800, F1200, or the 5 to 7 micron and 2 to 3 micron. See if that will get in focus there. There we go. 3 to 2 micron, 5 to 7 micron, F800, F1200, Venev Industrial Diamonds. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. All right. So there we go. And yeah, I'll give it a good one. It's a good 88 to 90, depending on how you feel on feedback. I'm not super impressed, but I'm not disappointed either. I'm like, oh, this sucks. It's a good stone. Is it all the same as the hype? Not really. Not really at all. I don't find it to be that fantastic. It's not bad. The resin's hard, but it's not that. It's a little, soaks in a little bit. Would be better if it was a vitrified bond. But it's just not, there's probably better ones out there. It's just a matter of pricing more than anything else. And if you think the value is worth it. Can you get more for less? Yes, you can get DMTs that are very similar, will give you a lot of the same results for less price, for about half the price. Or you can just get one and then strops, and it will be just, you'll have ridiculously sharp edges for a long time. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew, and you guys have a great rest of your night.